Hey guys, before I start the video, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's bought a Superman head sculpt from me. I really cannot state how much I appreciate everyone's support on the past couple of videos and on my head sculpts. It means the world to me. And if you're interested in purchasing either a Tim Sale Superman head or a traditional Superman head, I still have quite a few of both available, so DM me on Instagram for details. Okay, you read the title, you know what the video is about. I'm not gonna bother doing some crazy thesis statement or something, let's just keep it classy. The TASM movies altered my brain chemistry as a child. I mean, I grew up watching the Raimi movies on DVD, but I was literally like an infant by the time the third movie came out, so I didn't really technically grow up watching those movies in the theater. But by the time TASM 1 came out, I was actually old enough to remember the movie release and seeing it in theaters. I remember wearing my plastic TASM mask in the theater while covering my ears because of the lizard jump scare. I mean, literally on the last day of school, my parents brought me to Toys R Us and got me the TASM Mini-Mates. But it didn't just stop at the Mini-Mates. I had the costume, the spider car, this toothbrush holder thing, I don't really know what this is. And I also have the 1/18 scale superposable figure that I need to fix because one day recently I picked it up not anticipating the noticeable strength difference in me as an adult who likes to believe I'm stronger than I actually am because I go to the gym 4 times a week versus me as a small child who couldn't really do any damage to this figure. Oh, I also had the lizard to go with him. But my favorite figure from this era was the Marvel Select Disney Store exclusive Unmasked Andrew Garfield Peter Parker figure. See, this is something that you might be able to pick up on if you follow me, but I have a fascination with recreating actors' likenesses in plastic form. I love repainting action figure head sculpts because I find that replicating a real human face is the closest thing I can get to making a tiny version of that person or character in a non-creepy way. It just elevates the art form. Having an unmasked head is almost like world building in my creative mind. It gives me the idea that even though these are action figures, they're still part of some greater thing. They each have a story. So even as a tiny kid, I think I still had this exact same mindset, so I wanted this figure so bad. I used to watch Spider Pig C's video, shout out if you're familiar with his game, of him buying this figure at the Disney store and wishing it was me. And as a prize for some accomplishment that I had at that age that I have no memory of, my parents drove me to the Disney store and I finally got to have one of these figures to myself. Finally, I didn't just have a TASM Spider-Man figure in my hand, it was an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man figure in my hands. I could literally feel him. So needless to say, I had quite an obsession with Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I mean, I've owned just about every single major 1/12 Andrew Garfield Spider-Man figure. Except for the Mafex, I have the CT Toys one. But like everything as a kid, you kinda grow out of some things, and I grew out of my TASM phase pretty much immediately as Tom Holland's Spider-Man debuted. The timeline of my live-action Spider-Man obsession kinda goes like this. Tobey was my obsession when I was like a literal toddler, then Andrew for a few years, then Tom, and then Tobey again because I got a little bit too deep into Toxic Raimi fanboy videos. I don't want to talk about that. But then again, in early high school, literally like a year or two before No Way Home came out, I watched The Social Network for the first time. And much like the TASM movies when I was little, this altered my brain chemistry. And once again, I was Andrew Garfield pilled. So by the time No Way Home leaks came around, I was ecstatic. I mean, everyone talks about this, but you had to be there. So finally, to put a short and sweet bookend to the saga, I got to see my favorites on the screen together, with a mature appreciation for each Spider-Man, all of them having different traits that make them special and unique. Though Andrew is still my favorite. And like everything else in my life, it all came back to action figures. Hasbro Marvel Legends No Way Home 3-pack? Bought. SH Figuarts Andrew Garfield? Bought. Single card, unmasked Andrew Garfield figure? Also bought. Do I have problems with these figures? Yes. Did I customize them? Yes. Are we finally done the long exposition and can I explain how I customize them finally? Also, yes. Okay, so let's go chronologically. Hasbro's proportions are bad. Like 60% of the time, they're pretty bad. They generally have big heads, long necks, low shoulders, and overall just really weird body shapes. Not to get started on how Hasbro somehow just seems to not understand how to engineer a double ball peg. So literally immediately within the hour after I got this initial 3-pack in June of 2023, I got to work and here's the result. Better proportions and better articulation. Okay, you've looked at it for long enough. Let me explain how I did it in the most simple terms possible. Get a knife, either some sort of box cutter or X-Acto knife or thin hobby knife. Just cut along the seams of his torso and split it in half. Now with the rotary tool, clear out some space around the ball joint and boom, increase articulation. Now for the shoulders, heat them up, take them out of the butterfly joints, make a new hole that is higher that's in the butterfly joint, then cut down this upper area of the butterfly so that once the shoulders are lifted, they have space to actually sit and move around. For the neck, this one is optional because I used a complex, more sophisticated method. Okay, so I took the original ball joint from the Hasbro figure, cut off the smaller ball, took a McFarlane Toys peg, cut off the bigger ball from that, and then I drilled inside of the bigger McFarlane Toys ball and glued it into the Spider-Man peg. And then I dremeled a little bit of room in his neck and then boom, better range. Okay, so this one is technically easier, though it requires a lot more brute strength. The problem is, as you can see very obviously, his neck on the original figure is way too long. Okay, so take the neck off, heat it up, take out the interior peg, which is inside of this rubber neck piece. I don't really know how to describe it other than just it's a sleeve. Cut out this intermediate section right here, and then put the now two parts back into the neck, and boom, it's shorter. You can also glue these parts back into the neck sleeve, but that's not necessarily required because friction keeps it in. I glued mine in, but that's just preference. Something else I did to this figure to make it a little bit more accurate was the eyes. The original head sculpt is decent, but it's still pretty off. The eye shape is off, and then there's just too much white and the black rims aren't thick enough. So I repainted the eyes by adding more black to give it the illusion that they're a different shape, even though I didn't actually resculpt anything. Because in reality, they're just recontoured using black paint. So then I used UV resin to give it a shiny lens look. And the UV resin, as a byproduct, actually gives the eyes a rounder shape, so that's more accurate, so that's a plus. Now here we are at the meat and potatoes, the reason I'm actually making this video. The most accurate Marvel Legends Unmasked Andrew Garfield figure. Probably, because I don't have a source to verify this. So, like all No Way Home Andrew Garfield figures, this 2023 Unmasked single card release actually goes under the TASM 2 licensing, while being unapologetically accurate to No Way Home. The likeness is pretty good, but the expression looked like he was always kind of bored to me, and he always had this weird Lego Elvis hair kind of look. So because of these reasons and the fact that I already had a custom Andrew Garfield head sculpt, I passed on it. But in late 2024, it was re-released and I caved and I picked it up. So now with two TASM 2 / No Way Home Marvel Legends figures, I figured I'd do a more extreme modification to the spare copy. First, I did the exact same shoulder and articulation modifications as earlier, but that wasn't good enough for me. As a byproduct of budget and engineering, most domestic toy companies portray unmasked characters as literally just them in the costume, but they have a human face, which means their neck is covered with spandex and it kind of just, it chokes them around like a turtleneck instead of having their neck shown like it should be, like, you know, like a shirt. You know, obviously this is because of convenience sake. Like I said, nobody really cares for this small detail except for probably me. And since this was technically my second copy of the figure, and since I bought it specifically for this unmasked head, I figured why not try to make it more accurate by having this quote-unquote exposed shirt neck look. So I took the neck of the original figure, I cut it, I drilled the inside out a little bit, and I took this Doctor Strange neck, I cut it up and stuck it inside of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man neck. But again, this wasn't enough for me. The colors of the suit were off, and they were always off. I just didn't bother repainting them on my original figure. The red is too much of a purple shade, and the blue is too light and also kind of purple. So I repainted it, and now he's perfect. Nah, I'm kidding, of course. His hair still looked weird, and while the likeness was pretty good, you know, it never hurts to get some painting practice done. So I cut down the sides of his hair and resculpted it to be quote-unquote seamless with his face, getting rid of that Lego hair look. And I repainted the head. I don't have progress videos here, but I have some progress pictures, so I'll show those. My biggest problem was just I really didn't like how dark his hair was. And, you know, it sucks that they gave him such a bored expression because of how expressive Andrew Garfield is, but at least I was able to find some good reference of Andrew Garfield making this really bored, lifeless expression, so I could get it as accurate as I could. Yeah, this repaint might not be one of my best, and it might not even be that much better than the original figure. You know, some people might even say it's a downgrade, but I'm overall a lot happier with it now. But the crazy thing about doing this custom was that it gave me the same sense of joy that holding that Marvel Select figure did back when I was little. It reminds me of why I love this hobby so much. I get to create this world out of my own imagination, a recreation, a reflection of these things I love so much, but in a creative and transformative way that I get to be a part of. It's why I think everyone, no matter how artistically inclined or declined you might be, should take up some sort of transformative or artistic hobby. It's why I love to do what I do, whether it's collecting figures, making customs, or doing videos. You know, these things are just an escape we need to keep that childlike wonder within us, letting us keep that sparkle in our eyes. You know, I'm a pretty young and naive person, but there's one thing I know. It's that this hobby and what I do, what I want to put out there, it reminds me that my life, while it may be tough to see, life can be really